So I wanted to ask, what is the main reason that people get into Kabbalah? Because people get into Christianity, like I would say, a very macro, oversimplified view would be like they want salvation. We want salvation. We don't want the negative on the other side. We want life. We want to be saved. What is it that people get out of Kabbalah from joining it, or what's the bait?
Did you fall into Kabbalah?
No.
I would be the only one in the room that could probably answer that question, unless you want to talk from the victims. But for the exact same reasons that people get into Christianity, you want life, but you want control. You want to use the secrets of God, not to submit to God and to die for God, but you want to create power over your life and your circumstances. It's power.
Mm-hmm. And there's a reason why you can derive power from Kabbalah, because it's much more than just a system of philosophy. Because any philosophy is more powerful than the words themselves. But there is a power behind Kabbalah that's unique, and it's because this pattern, this shape, this tree of life, as they call it, the Kabbalistic tree of life, is not just an idea. It's a superstructure in the spirit world. And for that reason, it is also used by some of the highest levels of Luciferians, sorcerers, etc., for their magical workings and their rituals. And it serves as an extraordinary programming template. So if someone was programmed by like a Mengele, if someone was programmed by the Jesuit order, if someone is programmed within the Illuminati, they're all basically going to have this system sitting somewhere deep inside the entire Kabbalah tree. And the rituals to install the Kabbalah tree are awful. I mean, they're really sadistic, and painful. And the people that have survived them and then to get their memories back, I've had to do some of that work with folks. And and so for that reason, like it's not just entrepreneurs, obviously, that are going to use the system. It's people that know its magical properties and how powerful the pattern and the belief system surrounding it is. There's a reason why H.P. Blavatsky, A.E. Waite, Manly P. Hall, Albert Pike, all these people are ardent students of this system. And I want to just call it a system of sorcery, because it is essentially a counterfeit gate into the spirit world, its realms and its councils. And when you are able to ascend through the tree, and so this gets away more from the program and more from the initiation aspect of it, when you are able to ascend, you can get power from these realms. And you can also explore areas of the second heaven, and that's where Merkabah mysticism comes in. Merkabah mysticism is Jewish spirituality. So now when we go back, say, to the Jewish perspective on Kabbalah becomes the spiritual side of this. Many times you hear people talk about it. Like in Judaism, you don't start studying Kabbalah until you're a certain age. You have to be 40 years old or something like that, they suggest, before you really start studying Kabbalah from that gate. And but there's a deep spiritual component where now you are interacting with the spirit world through that belief system and religion. They use Merkabah mysticism, and that they anchor to Ezekiel, right? Where not Ezekiel. I think it's Elijah. He goes to the heaven in a chariot or whatever. So Merkabah mysticism is the chariot, but they use twin pyramids, and the idea is you use meditation practices to kind of take two pyramids around your soul and spin them in opposite directions. And in doing so, you can engage in a type of astral projection inside of the Merkabah. But when you are doing that, their agenda is to go into the worlds of the Kabbalah tree, ascending, and then finding themselves meeting in different worlds with different councils, groups, entities. And so when you see the Kabbalah tree map, you'll see like this is the council that meets in Keter. This is the council that meets in Hokmah. This is the council that meets in Tiferet. This is they have the whole thing mapped. And so it's like a counterfeit ascension protocol where in Christianity, Jesus says, I am the door. Any ascension I do in the spirit world, I do in Jesus. Like Jesus is going to take me wherever I need to be. I'm not going to use some kind of astral vehicle to go into all kinds of areas of the second heaven that may be completely defiled or dangerous even, or meet with entities that may completely defile my view of reality or possess me or whatever it is. But in Kabbalah, you're going through you're not using Jesus at all. And you flood it with all this Hebrew wording, but at the end of the day, right, they're ascending. And then the goal is to get higher in the tree through the counterfeit ascension protocol. So this is where a lot of the Jewish mysticism has gone. And once you get to a certain point in the tree, this is where you run into the abyss. Now, the abyss is referenced in different belief systems, including, I think, Freemasonry. You have to, like crossing the abyss or whatever. The abyss in Kabbalah is the da'at. That's the throat sephirot when you map it to the human body. They call that the knowledge. That's the point that's heavily associated with the Leviathan universal consciousness application. That comes through knowledge. When you cross the abyss in Kabbalah, you enter what they call the supernal triad. And that's where you're like a living, walking God on the earth. And you can manifest all you want, and you have this, but you have to cross the abyss first. This is deep, dark spiritual stuff that you have to do to get to that point. And really, you can't do something like cross the abyss without permissions, without buy-in from areas of the kingdom of darkness, entities, powerful entities. And so, the deeper a person would go into Kabbalah, the more likely they're going to end up being partnered with very serious dark entities in order to continue their ascension agenda.
Yeah, it's a Gordian knot, bro. Because da'at is the same word that my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Da'at. It's the same exact word, and so people get tricked because they're like, well, if I'm destroyed for lack of da'at, and God's saying that's a bad thing, then if I pursue knowledge, then that will be a good thing. And you go through this weird, like, the more you understand, the more it sort of sucks you in. So it's a knot. So this is why I'm like fascinated. I want to untangle the knot. Now
I want to help you understand it a little bit better, and your listeners. Now this is going to go very deep, right? So
Jake, are you freaking out right now?
I just have one question that I wanted. I'm trying not to ask as many questions because I'm trying to let you just go to get deep. But
I can see his blood pressure is going up. So
it's difficult. I try to keep it at bay.
That's all right.
Just super quick. I know that one of the things that you voiced on the show is you don't want to be known for sensationalism on the show. Mm-hmm. So that's not my heart in asking this, but there are people who have never seen this podcast as they're watching this episode. And so maybe there's some people that are like, maybe I don't even know if this is real, but I'm willing to listen. You have an interesting perspective on the stories that you have. You said people go through rituals, crazy stuff. If it's too graphic, that's okay. But it'd be interesting just to hear one example of what it's like and what they're getting out of it on the other side. Because I'm assuming this is still happening right now.
Yeah.
People are still doing the rituals.
Yeah.
I'd be curious of one example of that.
Yeah.
Just to kind of root it in like what people are literally doing modern day in the world. And then
well, like so for instance, when you map Kabbalah to the human body, you may you will have the male side and the female side of the tree, right? So you have Keter, which is the crown. That's like the head here. But then you have Hokmah and Bina. Those are on respectively the right and left sides of the body, around the ears and the shoulders. So in a ritual where a person is being programmed to put in a Kabbalah template, they may take the person, tie them down, and pull their arm out of their shoulder socket, dislocate it, torture them in that state, and then put the bone back in. No drugs, no any painkillers, nothing. You're torturing the person. You are tearing their body apart. You're putting it back in. They may, for the heart, do something that causes the person to die. They actually kill them in the ritual. The heart stops. Then they use magic, demons, and maybe some actual pads, put it on a chest, bring the person back to life, and then continue the torture and the ritual. When they're doing yesod, which is the part that maps to the sex organs, for lack of better words, the kind of sexual tortures that they will do to a person or a child or a baby, 3 months old, are so graphic, I'm not going to say it on the podcast, but they are opening gates through torture and evil and bloodshed and the most heinous crimes against humanity in the process of installing this template into people for its power and its ability to have all kinds of mind control applications anchored into it and other things. In the world of sorcery, Kabbalah is at the top when it comes to powerful templates with which to work.
Well, these are stories from victims that you've personally talked to.
100%.
All right. Thank you. That's helpful.
Not everyone. Most people who have dabbled in Kabbalah probably haven't been through that.
Sure.
But I just want to put that out there too, because there are people watching this who have been like, "Well, I went to a Kabbalah conference and they haven't gone through that." So that would be more extreme.
Correct. And again, we're gonna talk about Kabbalah. It has so many contexts and frames of reference. So it has its context as a programming template. It has its context as a belief system that New Agers are looking to manifest more money in their lives. It has different routes in which it's being brought out into public exposure. And so one doesn't equal the other.
Right.
But it's the same tree of life. Okay.
Keep going.
All right. So now I want to explain the twin Messiah aspect of Kabbalah, how it connects to Leviathan, and why this matters when it comes to knowledge, universal consciousness, and movements towards the beast kingdom, really. Revelation 13 stuff. So Isaiah 27:1 says, "And in that day God will punish the fleeing serpent, that twisted serpent, and slay the reptile that is in the sea." Now, in Kabbalah, they will take Isaiah 27:1 and say there are twin messiahs because there are two Leviathans. Think Caduceus, right? Where you have the rod and then you have two snakes going up, right? So you have twin Leviathans, but in their belief system, they say, well, if God had allowed those two Leviathans to mate, they would have destroyed the world, because Leviathan is like a primordial chaos monster. It's so big and it can encircle the whole universe. It's an Ouroboros. And so what they believe is, well, God killed the female and castrated the male. And the male is now supposed to be this messianic figure, while the female is like preserved. And so this male Nakash, Leviathan in this belief system now is, because of what Adam did in their belief system, is under some kind of subjugation until a point in world history where he's going to overcome that around circa AD 1840. And now he's going to arise into his proper role as a messianic figure that's going to help man engineer his own immortality, liberation, and ascension into universal consciousness. So he's going to work with the mysteries of Kabbalah, which means we have to initiate as many people around the world into Kabbalah as possible in whatever way we can, whether it's New Age or whether it's Jewish mysticism or whether it's Hebrew roots or whatever we can get it into, even dispensational premillennialism, like whatever we can get elements of this belief system into, we got to get as many people to buy into it as possible. And so with the twin messiahs, they call them Meshiach ben David and Meshiach ben Yosef. These two messiahs are in Kabbalah called twin messiahs, twin Leviathans. and they each have a role. Mashiach ben Yosef is supposed to basically lead the world to the point where there is a manifestation of the future kingdom, a deployment of the mysteries of the Torah, so that Mashiach ben David, the other twin Messiah, can come in and give the world the deepest teaching of Torah possible, which they call like Remez Ha Mezraim, or I butchered that one, but something like that. It's deeper than Sod in Torah revelation. They say only this guy, this Leviathan, this Messiah, Mashiach ben David, can teach this. But first, the world has to be prepared for that. And so this other twin Messiah has to take the world through this progression of steps. This is the onboarding of technology. This is also political Zionism, because the seed of everything that's going to be built has to be Israel and Jerusalem. So you have to actually have political Zionism fully deployed. It has to work for, and what they believe is that twin Leviathan, Mashiach ben Yosef, they call him, is Metatron of through the book of 3 Enoch, which they call the little Yahweh, and he is the driver behind political Zionism in their view, to the end that they can bring in Mashiach ben David that's going to bring universal consciousness. And so with that said, it's just so interesting, and I don't want to. I'm just giving facts right now. I don't want to argue like points, but I'm just giving facts. One of the things about Metatron is the name of the Metatron cube. Metatron's cube is the 6-pointed star you derive from the midst of the tree of life, with the top at Da'at and the bottom at Yesod. And again, it would be helpful probably for your listeners if you put up a picture of that so they could just see it. Like the 6-pointed star then is also called the Star of Remphan, which is the same 6-pointed star you find on the flag of Israel. It's that shape. That sits in the midst of the Kabbalah tree. That is called the Metatron's cube, and it is 6 points, 6 sides, and 6 faces, which is where some people that have researched this have come away saying, "Oh, that is 666. That's the mark of the beast." Interesting point. People can look at that for themselves. Now, when you have the conclusion of the role of Mashiach ben Yosef, this Metatron character, this little Yahweh, you will have then the revealing of the Mashiach ben David, the other serpent, the other twin Leviathan, Messiah figure that now initiates the world into universal consciousness. But what they believe universal consciousness is the 3 C's of consciousness. It is culinary consciousness, which has to do with like the consumption of food. It is carnal consciousness, which is like sexual consciousness. And then there's one more, which is like having to do with the mind. And I forget what that C is at the moment, but it's the 3rd C of consciousness. And this is what this second messianic figure does. And he does it at an inception point they call the Feast of Leviathan. And so they reinterpret now Isaiah 25, which says, "And in that day I will make a feast of fat things, a feast of wines on the lees." It talks about the covering of nations, this massive feast that God makes. And they say, this is what's happening here. You have Jerusalem, you have Israel, you have the manifestation of this final messianic figure, the second twin Messiah. He's going to give the world universal consciousness, and there's going to be a Feast of Leviathan to inaugurate this new universal consciousness that is being brought in, where they're going to basically eat the flesh of Leviathan. And when you really get into the deep understanding of what they believe this means, and you can actually pull this right out of a book called the Kol HaTor, which is the cry of the turtle dove. It's a book of Kabbalistic eschatology. Anyone could buy it and read it. I did. what you understand is they believe that the flesh that you are eating of Leviathan is actually the phallus. You're eating the serpent phallus. And the skin, the sukkot that covers the city, that they say the nations will walk in the light of your shining or whatever. Like, they believe that the covering around the city is actually the foreskin of the serpent phallus that shines. And so it's actually the serpent phallus that brings in this universal consciousness, meaning Kabbalah at its core is actually a big sex cult. It's a big sex religion. It's centered on phallic worship. And it is the phallic worship, the eating and the consumption of the flesh of the phallus, that ultimately brings the universal consciousness they want to move people into.
I've heard the 3Cs as there might be different models. I've heard the 3Cs as like carnal consciousness, then conscious awareness, which is like universal consciousness, and then Christ consciousness, which is what's permeating the Jesus not being so this is a different model, I'm assuming.
Maybe.
Different. Yeah. Which maps to this. The problem is like it all maps, and you can find stuff in the Bible to sort of twist and make it like when Paul's talking about like body, soul, spirit, they're like, oh yeah, the spirit's Christ consciousness, the soul is conscious awareness, which is your mind taps into universal consciousness, and then the body is carnal consciousness, which is like, so you can find it everywhere. Another interesting thing on the snake is you said it's one pole with two snakes.
The caduceus.
Again, it's like it has some roots inside of biblical analysis, but then it's twisted. So it's like when Moses raised the pole with the snake around it, and then people are worshiping it, and then this is like basically maps to Greek mythology, which is two snakes. And so I think Christians just get confused. Like they get so confused.
And that's on purpose. That's on purpose. Because at the end of the day, and this is what I tell people, it's like, this is a system of sorcery that is being power brokered by a snake that the Bible describes as a twisting serpent. And what he does is he doesn't just make up stuff. He takes truth and twists it so it's maximally confusing.
Yeah. That's what I meant to say.